welcome to Click to Learn More, the show that sounds like clickbait.
But it's actually two dorks.
I'm Lidi.
I'm Dorm.
And today, Dorm.
Yes.
Dun dun dun.
Did I win something?
Yes, the story of two body snatchers.
Okay.
That's what you've won.
What is a body snatcher?
Oh, you're gonna find out.
Your voice just broke.
You're gonna find out. I'm so excited.
You're very excited.
So we're gonna talk about Burke and Hare. These dudes.
Don't they make very fancy
What you got?
purses and handbags?
I was like, there's something brewing.
What is
there.
that? Oh, it's Burberry. Okay. I was
Burberry?
like, where did I pull that from?
I don't know.
I was like, is it Birkenshire? No. Is Birkenshire a thing?
Probably.
That's something, right?
Birkenstock?
No, not the shoes.
No.
Birkenshire? I'm gonna look at it.
Bricky-brack?
Burberry is what I'm thinking of. With
Bricky-brack?
the weird sepia and brown
Yeah,
plaid
yeah,
with the
yeah.
little red stripes.
Ooh.
That was my computer.
Ooh. Just chiming in
Let me
for
fix
the
that.
day.
Go ahead.
So some of my sources for today are The Guardian, the lineup, burkeandhare.com, believe it or not,
Wait, these two dudes
Britannica,
have their own website.
right? Atlas Obscura, historicuk.com, How Stuff Works, Wikipedia, of course, and National Museum Scotland. And I've told you this before we started, but I'm supposed to say Edinburgh, but I'm probably going to say it wrong. So just
Berkshire is not a thing, by the way. Berkshire is a place in England.
maybe that's what
Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
I mean, it sounded like a thing.
Thank you.
It sounded legit. You could have told me you were going to vacation there, and I would have believed you. So, but I'm gullible.
That's where the hobbits are from.
So William Burke and William Hare, both of them named William.
Oh, they have first names.
Yes.
So you told me right before we
Oh,
started.
you thought that? Oh, that's my.
I was like, why is this person
my
named
bad.
Hare?
I was confused. I was like, yes, this is like not a surprising thing, but
I
yeah.
thought they just had because Burke could be like a first name. That's fine.
Oh yeah, you're
So I was
right.
like-
I totally didn't. I didn't give away the
Hare?
twist. I didn't give away the
Hippie
twist.
parents.
Both of them named William, which is great. So I'm going to refer to them as Burke and Hare moving forward for the sake of our sanity, so that we
or
don't.
Bill and Willie.
William 1 and William 2. They were murderers and grave robbers accused of committing around 16 killings over a period of about 10 months between 1827 and 1828
Okay, the Golden Dorm era is what I was gonna say.
in Edinburgh, Scotland. And like I told you, I have a sound clip. And
Yeah.
I'll play it so that
Please
everybody
play
knows
it.
how it's supposed to
Right
go.
into the mic.
Here.
Get it closer.
Edinburgh. And I'm not going to be able to say it correctly, so that
Edinburgh.
is that sounds like he's saying Edinburgh.
Let's play it again. Give it to me one more time.
This is the whole show.
That's fine. Edinburgh. I hear like
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. Okay.
They're after me like each other. Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
Oh, laddie. It's
Burke,
Irish, not Scottish.
yeah, we're going all over the globe. Burke and Hare would sell corpses to Robert Knox for dissection at his anatomy lectures. So we're going to learn about who each of these people are. But first, we're going to have a little bit of background.
Okay.
So Edinburgh is the capital.
I don't know why you're rolling the R.
I don't know. I can't.
Edinburgh.
I can't say words. Is the capital city of Scotland, and it's the second largest financial center in the UK after London. The city's historical and cultural attractions have made it the United Kingdom's second most popular tourist destination, again after London, attracting
always
over
taking the cake.
always every time, always taking the tea cake, attracting over 1
was
million
stupid.
overseas visitors each year. Edinburgh is Scotland's second most populous city. Glasgow is first. Glasgow?
I've always said Glasgow, but
Glasgow?
it's like a Glasgow. No, just kidding. Sorry.
It's first and the seventh most populous in the United Kingdom. So we're going to talk about body snatching.
How many more populous cities are in the UK?
Apparently six more.
Yeah, but I'm surprised Glasgow is 7th. Anyway.
We going to talk about body snatching. In the early 19th century, Edinburgh was a leading European center of anatomical study. That's going to trip me up too. Anatomical. Anatomical. Which meant the demand for cadavers led to a shortage of those available in legal supply. So the Scottish law stated that corpses used for medical research should only come from those who had died in prison, by suicide, or from... Okay, so they called them foundlings and orphans. So a foundling is an abandoned child left by its parents, often at a convent or similar safe place. So if you just got left somewhere as a baby,
just like an abandoned child that was found.
If you're a little Jon Snow and you died and you didn't have
is that
any
a Game of Thrones reference?
Yeah, and you didn't have
you watch Game of Thrones?
I've seen an episode or two.
Okay.
And you haven't had any other family that will claim you, Scottish law dictates that they can donate your body to science.
Gotcha.
And then you can get cut
open. I
don't
get the Jon Snow reference, but okay.
Oh, he's a bastard. He doesn't know who his dad is, so he doesn't have and his mom's dead, so he's kind of just like he's on his own. Somebody got it. Somebody liked it. You can tell me if you liked it.
I didn't.
Well, not you.
Oh, you didn't mean me.
Not
Sorry.
you. During the 18th century, hundreds had been executed for trivial crimes, but by the 19th century, only about 56 people were being sentenced to capital punishment each year. With the expansion of the medical schools, however, as many as 500 cadavers were needed annually. So to be able to kind of show you the inner workings, your goalie works, if you will, I won't. Nope. To show you the goalie works of a person, they needed 500 people to open up each year, and they didn't have that many people. Not like
therapy.
Yeah, they didn't have that many people. The shortage of available corpses led to an increase in body snatching by what were referred to as resurrection men or resurrectionists, which is a terrible practice, but a super cool name. Like, you could be a resurrection man?
Is.
That sounds
Resurrectionist
awesome.
Is pretty dope.
That sounds pretty cool.
That sounds like someone who would feud with The Undertaker.
Yeah, it does sound like a wrestling name. Maybe that's why it's so hype for me.
Or like a Mortal Kombat character.
Yeah, the Resurrection Man.
Resurrectionist wins.
Finish him. This was an eerily common practice in the 19th century, since body snatchers would sell the corpses for use in dissection or anatomy lessons in medical schools. So this is going to be different from grave robbing, because with grave robbing, you open a grave up, you take any valuables they have.
You don't take the bod.
You don't take the bod.
Right.
You leave the bod to rot, and you take all of the valuable stuff, and then you leave, right? This is the opposite. They would take the body and leave all of the valuables.
Oh, they left all the stuff?
Yeah, because otherwise it would be stealing as well. So because the laws for this weren't as strict as they were for grave robbing.
Sure.
So body snatching laws were not as strict as grave robbing laws.
Freaking capitalism.
Right? Isn't that weird?
Scotland, but
isn't that strange? So
I assume Scotland's capitalist. I have no idea.
I wouldn't even know where to begin. Resurrectionists have also been known to hire women to act the part of grieving relatives and to claim the bodies of the dead at poorhouses. So they would show up and be like, "Oh, that was my husband. I've been looking for him forever.
Let me put him to rest.
He was a drunkard and he left my family, and let me take him home." And there's no ID at that time.
Right.
They have, and then all they have is a dead body on their hands. They're going to be happy to let it go, right? Because it's probably going to just go in a shallow grave out back anyway. So like, sure, go ahead. The purpose was to ascertain any hardships the body snatchers may later encounter. Oh, they were hired to attend funerals as well, to kind of like work the area to see like if they were going to have any trouble later. I kind of respect this. Trying to like, this was like a business. Yeah. Like this was like an actual thing that people didn't just show up. I mean, they did this too, but they didn't just show up at a graveyard and start digging. You know, like they planned. There was a long con. Yeah, they actually had like. They really, truly conned people so they could get a body, so they could sell it for money. Like, and were accidentally helping medical findings in the process. Sure. They were they were in it for the greed, right? But they were accidentally helping the state of medicine as we know it, because we were learning more about how to cut people open. With every person we were cutting open, we learned how to more properly do surgeries and learn how to save people from stuff based on greed. So that's kind of a sad story in itself, I guess. Bribed servants would sometimes offer body snatchers access to their dead master or mistress lying in state.
Nice.
The removed body would be replaced with weights.
That's awesome.
So sometimes they would work together, you know. I mean, and you think about it, right? Like, you're a paid servant, you're not getting a lot of money.
That's why I like it. It's the ultimate revenge.
And yeah, and if that person was terrible to you, I mean, you're like, yeah, you know what? Take them and give me some money for it.
Yeah.
So at the time, interfering with a grave was a misdemeanor at common law, not a felony, and therefore only punishable with a fine and imprisonment rather than transportation or execution. So the trade was a sufficiently lucrative business to run the risk of detection, particularly as the authorities tended to ignore what they considered a, quote, necessary evil.
Weirdly similar to bootlegging.
Kind of, yeah. So it's like, we know you need to do this thing. You're going to do this thing regardless. Yeah. You're not hurting anybody technically, but just they're already dead, right? We're going to turn a blind eye to it. Just don't let us catch you. Or you'll get fined. Okay, cool. I'm going to keep doing it because my only threat is that I'm going to get fined or I'm going to get a night in prison. Or a night, not even prison, but a night in jail, right? So not a big deal. One method the body snatchers used was to dig at the head of a recent burial, digging with a wooden spade, because that's quieter than metal. When they reached the coffin in London, the graves were pretty shallow, so they didn't have to go 6 feet like they're buried now. They broke open the coffin, put a rope around the corpse, and dragged it out. And they were often careful not to steal anything such as jewelry or clothes, as this would cause them to be liable to a felony charge. So instead of getting a felony charge, they would just get a misdemeanor.
Could you imagine being the grave robber that came upon somebody had done this in the past, though? You just open a coffin and there's just jewelry and no
jewelry
body.
Everywhere, and you're like, oh, man.
You'd probably be haunted.
Yeah.
Like, wait, the body disappeared, but the jewelry's still here for me to take. I'm in the wrong profession.
I feel
There's
like
a ghost.
You could, like, work together with a grave robber.
Right, like, I'll take this, you take that.
Like, if you help me dig this up, like, I won't tell, you don't tell, you get all the jewelry,
right.
I get the body.
We're going to do it anyway, so was I.
Yeah, let's just go our separate ways after, right. Like, no harm, no foul, and then we'll just put an empty coffin back down there. Nobody will know. None's the wiser. Body snatching became so prevalent that it was not unusual for relatives and friends of someone who had just died to watch over the body until burial and then keep watch over the grave after burial to stop it being violated. There's some kids going wild outside.
Yeah, I don't know if the audio is picking this up. Probably not. But
they're going wild outside.
No, you know what it is? No joke. It's the neighbor who has the weird beat up Jeep. Like trying to start it.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Oh no.
I've seen him do it. Or maybe they have dirt bikes too. It might be one of those.
That's kind of sad now.
I've heard him try to start the Jeep a bunch. Sorry. Weird aside.
I mean, it's kind of a funny thing to put in the middle of a not so funny thing.
I feel like that's what all your episodes are.
Kind of, right? Yeah.
It's like me trying to make jest out of macabre humor.
Trying to bring joy to some dark topic. So iron coffins, too, were used frequently, or the graves were protected by a framework of iron bars called mort safes, which were well-preserved examples of which may still be seen in Greyfriars Churchyard. Mort houses were also used to store bodies until decomposition, at which point they were useless for medical dissection. So a lot of people would be like, you know what? We're just going to put them in this building. We're going to lock them up. We'll come back and check on them in a few months after they just like bake in this. And they're going to be just like meat at that point, and they're going to be useless for dissection. And now we'll be able to bury them.
Don't like you referring to human as meat.
I mean,
but I will say that Iron Casket is a great band name. That's an amazing band name.
I also like the idea that, like, when this starts happening, when bodies start getting snatched from places, imagine the coffin seller who's like, oh, yeah, now people are going to be buying my iron coffins.
Yeah.
I'm going to, and like, because they can put the prices as high as they want.
Sure.
And people that can come
Not unlike our current situation.
Well, like, they can put the coffins as high as they want because who's going to, like, you know, the price is going to meet the demand.
It's an inelastic good. Yeah.
People want that. And then...
Or it's wait, which one is it?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's inelastic. The one where it's like...
I don't know nothing about nothing.
Like medicine is one of those. I don't know if it's inelastic.
Oh, like you're always going to need it kind of thing?
Right, like you'll pay however much it costs because you have to have it.
Because you have to have it, yeah. I got you.
It's almost similar to vaults now. Like burying someone in a vault.
Yeah.
Because my best friend worked at a funeral home for a while.
Ooh.
And so I know like just the processes of that, and it's ridiculous. Like how you can... Some people get buried in a vault, in a coffin, underground.
Just to
preserve their body.
Because they don't want to be a zombie? Like they don't come back as a zombo?
I don't know. I don't get it. Cremate me. I don't care.
Yeah. I don't, well, what do I care? I'm dead.
Give my body to science.
I want to be on the body farm.
Of course you do.
That scares my mom so bad that she thinks
my mom probably does too.
That she thinks I actually want to do that. Because I'll bring it up and I'm like, just donate my body to the body farm. She's like, oh my God, no. Just like, it freaks out. Anyway. The Lancet, which is a weekly peer-reviewed journal, it's a general medical journal. It's among the world's most oldest, prestigious, and best-known general medical journal. And that's a little bit of background on that. The Lancet reported another method for grave robbers, or body snatchers, rather. A manhole-sized square of turf was removed 15 to 20 feet, which is 5 to 6 meters, away from the head of the grave, and a tunnel was dug to intercept the coffin, which would be about 4 feet or 1.2 meters down. The end of the coffin would be pulled off, the corpse pulled up through the tunnel, and then the turf was replaced, and any relatives that were watching the graves would not notice the small remote disturbance. And the article suggests that the number of empty coffins that have been discovered since then, quote, proves beyond a doubt that at this time body snatching was frequent. So people would literally take shifts in graveyards and watch over their loved ones. And this was a way that they developed to get around that, to where they could literally take your loved one out of the coffin without you ever knowing.
Yeah.
right out from under you, and you would have no idea, and you'd be like peace of mind, totally fine, and meanwhile they're getting cut up next door. You know, that's kind of scary in and of itself. The fresher, quote unquote, fresher the body, the more money it was worth. Thus, it didn't take long before grave robbing graduated to anatomy murder. So, if you were going to like. If it's freshly dead, that's when you want to cut it open, because you want to see what killed it, how it works, all this stuff. You don't want it after rigor mortis is set in. You don't want it after all of this stuff has happened. Yes.
The show Rick and Mortis?
Yes. Rick and Mortis, my favorite show.
Oh, gee, Mortis.
Oh.
I haven't done that voice in a while. It was bad.
I'm glad that you hadn't done it in a while. I'm glad that it's rusty.
Oh, gee.
So now we're going to talk about Burke and Hare. Again, like this is their background now.
Are you going to explain what anatomy murder is?
So anatomy murder is they're just killing. They're killing.
Why is it called anatomy murder?
I don't know. It's like it's like a British thing. So this info is straight from historicuk.com. William Burke and William Hare both originated from the province of Ulster in the north of Ireland and moved to Scotland to work on the Union Canal. Burke having abandoned a wife and 2 children back in Ireland. Was just like, see ya, gonna go work on a canal.
He went out to go get milk.
Yeah. He went to go, nope. The pair met and became close friends.
No.
I'm not going to say it. The pair met and became close friends with Burke moved in with his mistress, Helen McDougall.
So these are both just stand-up men.
Dougal, yeah. To lodgings in Tanner's Close in the Westport end of Edinburgh. Hare lived on the same street and was running a boarding house at the time, and he was living with someone named Margaret Laird, a widower with whom he lived as man and wife.
I cook with Laird a lot.
And who was also known as Margaret Hare, even though they were not legally married. So I will be referring to them as their wives. They were their common law wives, even though they weren't technically married. The 2 couples became friends and acquired a reputation for hard drinking and boisterous behavior. They were known for boisterous behavior. Burke and Hare's first foray into the world of medical science happened in December 1827 when one of Hare's tenants, an elderly army pensioner by the name of Old Donald, died of natural causes. Poor Old Donald.
I love that guy.
Poor guy.
What's the story of him? That'll be my next episode.
Sources cite his cause of death as dropsy, which is an archaic term for edema, which is an abnormal accumulation of fluid in the body that can cause severe pain. He likely had a swelling in the brain caused by the presence of excessive fluid. Have you ever seen, like, when people's legs swell up with extra fluid and you can, like, you poke it and your fingerprint stays? That's edema. It's just extra fluid in the body.
You want to know what's really weird?
What?
There's a video game called Dropsy.
There is. It's the clown.
A clown, yeah. And he's very fluid, and I wonder if it's a reference to that.
I know that started on the Something Awful forums. I remember somebody that was on the Something Awful forums created it, and that's where the first time I'd ever heard of it. And so I looked it up after that, because I was like, what's Dropsy? What does that mean? And I was like, oh, it's like a thing that happens to you that can kill you. Yeah.
Sorry, the game.
So
what is Something Awful forums? What is that?
It's the same place where Slender Man originated. So it was like just some forum thing way back when.
Gotcha. Just an early board.
It was the cesspool.
So it wasn't the Parafan board that I was on.
No.
Really, the only forum experience I had was the Paramore fan board.
You had to, if you wanted to see all of the channels, you had to pay like $5 or $10 or something. Oh
God, that's gross.
Or else everything was like censored and like locked behind a paywall. And I just didn't. But I remember like Slenderman blowing up on that. Like that's the first place. I'll do a Slenderman episode someday, and like with my own experience of like seeing how it developed and then how it went wild.
When you met him.
When I met him personally.
Back when you were in high school.
Personally, me and old Slendy. But
good old SM.
oh no, but edema is like a lot of fluid that gets caught under the top layers of your skin.
Sure.
And it causes a lot of pain in people. Like you swell up.
I mean, imagine stretching your skin with water would be terrible.
And then like just the kind of sloshing back and forth, I guess.
You become a water balloon.
Yeah, you become Violet Beauregard, right? She gets all little blueberry.
I'm just thinking of that macabre thing. Sorry.
My little blueberry. So he like
that's such a good bit. Sorry.
So poor old Donald, he likely had swelling in his brain, which was caused by the presence of excessive fluid. That's known as a cerebral edema. So if you get extra in that,
they call Triple H.
And he's
the cerebral assassin for the joke to connect.
Really? Oh, okay. It can occur in toxic or abnormal metabolic states in conditions such as systemic lupus or reduced oxygen at high altitudes, and it causes drowsiness or loss of consciousness, leading to brain herniation and death. Anyway, I have
that guy died.
That's literally in my notes. This is anyway. Poor old Don died whilst doing. He owed 4 pounds in rent. He just owed 4. He owed 4 pounds.
So they cut off his leg and took it.
They took his whole.
Get it? Because pounds.
Oh. To cover the man's outstanding debt, the pair weighed his coffin down with tanning bark prior to his funeral and took his body to the medical school at Edinburgh University, where they were swiftly pointed in the direction of Professor Robert Knox, a popular anatomy lecturer. Knox paid the duo 7 pounds and 10 shillings for his body, which to them, they were like, whoa, we just found a dead dude and turned him in and got more money than we've had in a while. So this lit up a light bulb, right?
Yeah.
If it were that easy to get money from a dead body that essentially just fallen into their laps, how hard could it be to kill someone? Especially someone old, alone, drunk, or all three.
Interesting leap, but okay.
Like, think about it in that time, though, right? In the 1800s, there's drunk people, transients, there's prostitution everywhere.
Sure.
Like, there are
a
people,
lot less traceable things.
People that literally have no connection to this world other than their life, that one life, and how easy it would be. And a lot of people trusted each other just like randomly. And he ran this boarding house where people would come in and leave, and it would be so easy to just...
You're talking about it like it's the golden era.
Well,
like you miss it. Like, if I could have lived then,
it would be so easy.
It would have been so easy then.
So easy to get away with it. Well, see, the 1800s is when Jack the Ripper was operating too. So, like, this was a time of like people just killing people. Yeah. And whoops, I guess somebody else is dead now. Like, did they have a name? Nope, but they went by this. So,
boy, H.H. Holmes would have been at the end of the century.
Yeah. So they had, this was just running rampant, and if people weren't dying of that, they were dying of like STDs, or they were dying of diseases, or they were dying of whatever. So people were just dropping dead all over the place in the 1800s.
People just died.
Yeah. So encouraged by the ease with which they had made this money, the pair struck again in early 1828 when another tenant became ill. So I've referred to this tenant as they, because some places I've seen it as she and some places I've seen it as he, and I don't know which accounting is correct, so I'm just going to refer to them as they. Too impatient to see if the tenant would actually die from their afflictions, Burke and Hare took it upon themselves to help them along, plying them with whiskey and then suffocating them by covering their mouth and nose while they were forcibly restrained. This sounds terrible, is terrible, but is incredibly smart on their behalf because there are no bruises.
Right, suffocation's not going to show up anywhere.
Yeah. Or not, like modern forensics can find that, but not in the 1800s. Right. So this became Burke and Hare's favored method of execution, as it left the body unmarked and undamaged for the students who were later to dissect the cadavers. So in the aftermath of their killing spree, the practice became known as burking. So copycat people picked this up.
What a terrible thing to have named after you.
Right? Copycat people started doing this, and they'd call it burking, which was just you get them drunk and then you like hold them down and you suffocate them. And normally it was older people or drunk people or mentally handicapped people, like terrible situations, because these for greed, like they wanted more money. That was it. What became known as the Westport murders made them the most famous body snatchers Scotland's ever seen. So they became infamous.
Good game.
Blinded by greed, the two men, assisted by their common-law wives, would go on to entice at least 15, some say 17 total, unknown wayfarers into the lodging house over the course of the next few months, where they got them intoxicated, then smothered them, again, in order to leave no trace of violence. And after preying upon tenants of the boarding house, they moved on to prostitutes, strangers on the streets, etc. Afterward, they sold the corpses to Knox, who had to start getting a little suspicious,
right? I was just thinking that, like...
all of a sudden these people start showing up and they've got body after body after body, and they're all coming in the same way, like no injuries. Like, how did these people die? But he's not going to ask questions because he's getting paid money, and he's showing people how to cut open bodies and make new doctors. Like, it's kind of that necessary evil thing where it's like, okay, well, I guess we're going to just cut them open. We don't know what happened, Right. So this is a doctor who is supposed to like do no harm. I mean, technically he hasn't, but harm is being done.
Yeah.
The murders were discovered when two of Burke's lodgers, Anne and James Gray, grew suspicious about the unexpected disappearance of a visitor whom they had met in Burke's house the night before. So they had went up to Burke's room because Anne had left her stockings somewhere, and they went to find them, and Burke was like, no, you're not allowed in this room. And they were like, well, just let us in the room. We just have to pick up her stockings. And reports vary. One report says they found her under the bed, like dead under the bed, and another says in a pile of hay at the foot of the bed. I was just like, what? Why did you have a pile of hay at the foot of the bed? Like, maybe that's how they put them, like hid them. I don't know. They also talked about how there was a barn, and because one of the women that they killed was drunk and fell asleep in the barn, and so they were just like, she passed out, so they just smothered her in her sleep. So they found her dead body under Burke's bed on October 31st, 1828, Halloween, of course, was scariest thing. And they went for the police. A bribe of £10 per week was attempted to keep the witnesses quiet, but was reportedly refused. And I don't think I would trust them either. You just found a dead body under their bed. You think they're going to be like upstanding dudes that are definitely
keep up their bribe,
definitely going to give you this money? No, they're going to track you down and kill you and sell your body and get the money. No, you don't trust them. You go straight to the police. You go, hey, get them.
Well, thankfully they did.
And they did. Now, before we talk about what happened to Burke and Hare, I want to touch really quickly on a couple of the murders that Burke confessed to, because he did confess to some of the things that they had done. And you can find those online. Like, he goes into like some of the details. I'm not going to go into the details. If you want to find them, you can.
Yeah.
These really stuck out to me because these kind of showed you like how terrible they were as people. Many of their victims were victims of not only the murderers, but of their surroundings. So many were drunkards, they were mentally disabled, they were homeless, and simply put, they were just easy targets. Like, people trusted people a lot more then, and you were a victim just by existing, kind of. Burke and Hare murdered 2 lodgers in June. Quote, an old woman and a dumb boy, her grandson, as Burke later recalled in his confession. And I think when they say that, they mean he was deaf. But I just thought that was a very like, that's an archaic way to say, it's
weird
like,
dunk.
Like, oh, he was dumb, you know, but I mean, I know that's not what they mean, but when I read it, I was like, like, he just like kind of dunked on him after killing him, but all right. As Burke later recalled in his confession, while the boy sat by the fire in the kitchen, his grandmother was murdered in the bedroom by usual method of suffocation. Burke and Hare then picked up the boy and carried him to the same room where he was also killed. I read one account that said that they broke his back over their knee, but I don't...
Like Bane did?
Like, yeah, I don't know about all that, but I'm going to put it out there in case you run across this information too. I read that and I was like, dude, that seems strange that they'd be cool about just picking a kid up and slamming him down over their knees, like
just doing a full-on backbreaker.
Like, they've done violent deaths so far, but it hasn't been to the point that I'm aware of where they've like needed to break any bones or anything like that. Like, if a bone was broken, it would have been in the struggle of holding them down. To you know, they didn't seem to do it because they enjoyed it, but you know, who knows? That was 1800s. Maybe they did. So Burke later said that this was the murder that disturbed him the most, as he was haunted by the recollection of the boy's expression. And imagine living with that, right? Like, this dude remembered suffocating this kid. It doesn't say what age he was, but it kind of implies that he was young, like pretty young. And this kid is just like terrified and doesn't know what's happening. And you're just like holding the pillow over his face and he's slowly dying.
I mean, he did do it, so I'm not going to sympathize with him holding on to that message.
Absolutely not. Like, he's a monster, but like, it's funny to me that he'd be like, yeah, it's really sad because I killed this kid once and it bothers me, you know, like like him.
No shit.
Like, almost
you killed a kid.
Yeah, I shot a kid. Like his I'll have to explain later.
Okay, you just did an exclamation and
it's a McElroy thing. So the tea chest that was usually used by the couple to transport the bodies was found to be too small, so the bodies were forced into a herring barrel.
Like
fish
for the
barrel,
fish herring?
I guess, yeah. And taken to Surgeon Square, where they fetched 8 pounds each. So 8 pounds for each one. According to Burke's confession, the barrel was loaded onto a cart, which Hare's horse refused to pull further than the grass market. My throat made a noise.
It sounded like someone else talked inside of you. That was weird.
Hare called a porter with a handcart to help him transport the container. Once back in Tanner's Close, Yeah. Hare took his anger out on the horse by shooting it dead in the yard. So because the horse wouldn't go the full way he wanted it to, he shot it. This is Hare that did this, okay?
Hare shot a mare. Got it.
Hare shot a mare. Back to what happened to them after they were caught now. So Hare turned, as soon as they were caught, pretty much turned immediately and was like, oh, it's all Burke. It was 100% Burke. He did it.
Smart move.
I was scared of him. I helped. It was all him. I just happened to be there. I did nothing.
Just happened to be Hare.
I just happened to be here. They have no evidence, right? They have no way to prove it. No, it's one person's word against the other, right? So he and his wife, Hare and his common law wife, testified against Burke and his wife. And we're like, no, it was both of them.
So he said, she said, he said, she said.
Exactly. This act is referred to as turning king or queen's witnesses or turning queen or king's evidence, depending on the sex of the reigning monarch. So if the monarch at the time is a king.
I watch Law and Order UK. I've heard this phrase.
You're turning king's witness or turning king's evidence.
Yeah.
Which I had never heard of before. I thought that was really interesting because I've heard state's witness. I've never heard this.
Law and Order UK was awesome. They had to wear powdered wigs in the courtroom. It was great.
That's fantastic. I like that. Yeah. So this just means that witnesses for the prosecution in return for immunity or to avoid a death sentence or to get a lesser penalty will turn and be on the prosecution's side.
Working with the accusers.
In American parlance, a defendant who agrees to cooperate with prosecutors and give information against co-conspirators, often those with greater culpability, is said to flip and turn state's evidence. So John Gotti had one of his dudes flipped on him, like turned against him. Anyway, so Hare flipped and turned gray. He turned and was indeed granted immunity in return for his testimony.
Smart dude.
By then, news of the deadly duo had spread. So Hare's immunity didn't set well with the public because they were like, we don't trust this dude. Definitely think he probably had something to do with it.
The hate for Hare started to grow.
I could see you thinking of it and you smiled because you were so proud.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Hare had to be rescued from angry mobs by the police who spirited him to safety using decoy coaches and disguises. Hare's wife, Margaret.
So wig? Fake hair?
Yeah. Hare's wife Margaret. Yes, I got it.
That was great.
No, it wasn't.
That was awesome.
No, Hare's wife Margaret and Burke's mistress Helen felt the heat of the mob as well, and they were placed under police protection during the trial. Is that not wild to think about? Like, they get protected by the police, but they've been like killing people and stealing.
That's how diplomatic immunity works.
I know,
though.
But it's just like maddening to think that they get protection and they're horrible people. Anyway, so they were placed under police protection, and Hare, his wife, and Burke's mistress eventually fled to England just all together. Like, they just left. They were like, they dipped. They were like, see ya. While rumors swirled as to their whereabouts, one particularly vengeful tale claimed that Hare was, I'm not talking to you anymore, that Hare was blinded by a mob and died as a beggar in London. Their fates remain unknown. No clue. No evidence of what happened to them. No. Go. What do you want to say? Go ahead. I see you thinking. You're holding it for later?
Yeah.
He's got one. He just doesn't want to say it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Burke's trial commenced on Christmas Eve, 1828. He was being prosecuted for 3 of the reported murders, and the trial lasted for 24 hours, and he was found guilty of 1 murder and condemned to die. I don't know how they would, like, I mean, I guess because he confessed, like, that they'd be, like, why wouldn't they say that he was condemned for all of them? But
probably only prove 1, right? Isn't that how that works?
I guess so. I guess you just have to prove the one to get it. But anyway, I mean, if he had killed 3 people and my loved one was one of those 3 people, I would want to see justice for all 3 people.
Sure.
Instead of just the one.
But if they could only prove 1, then
I guess so. It's kind of like the way we were talking about like the life sentence, like 400 years life sentence or whatever in jail. Yeah. Like, how strange that is to say, but he was found guilty, and he was condemned to die. On January 28th, 1829, he was hanged before a crowd of more than 20,000 people. Some say so many as 25,000 people.
Damn. That's a big crowd in that
That's
day.
a pretty good-sized crowd, and they were all, like, cheering and celebrating.
That's so weird to think about.
Well, okay, so remember when Jeffrey Dahmer went to jail and when Ted Bundy was going to be... Oh, you don't remember.
I don't remember this.
Well, I wasn't alive, but, like, when Ted Bundy was going to be put in the electric chair, people were selling shirts that were, like, It's Friday...
Jesus.
And they were,
Pre-Rebecca Black.
And they were selling shirts that said, like, Ted's dead. and buttons.
That's pretty funny.
And like all of these things celebrate in the same kind of way that you would at like a public beheading or somebody being hanged. Like they were outside celebrating in that same way. And I remember like looking back on documentaries and stuff thinking, wow, that's barbaric, but we've been doing this for literally hundreds of years, like celebrating kind of the death of a terrible person. And it's kind of, does that make you any better? Right? Like,
I mean, I guess it's just different to me because like the Ted merchandise thing is just so bizarre that it's just kind of funny in that point. Like it's making humor out of something really dark. Yeah. But like going to see someone publicly die and applauding is really weird for me.
Yeah. So when Ted Bundy was put to death with the electric chair, they announce it. You know, as of this time, he's dead, and people like crowds screaming and cheering.
It's really
like
weird.
Like partying, playing music, like cookouts. Like people were like tailgating this.
It's so strange.
And it was just like,
how could you eat?
It was like this huge. They were celebrating the death of this person because of these horrible things this person had done. Yeah, and it's kind of like
weird.
Right. Like on one hand, you're like, I'm glad this monster's gone. Like I'm glad that
party about it.
I'm glad this evil is gone. But on the other hand, it's like, this was a human life, but there's such a small line there between the two that you feel bad for thinking it, but you're kind of also like, yeah, I'm glad that happened to you.
I don't know.
I'm glad you're gone.
Yeah, he's dead. Like I don't know if there's any like, he's dead. It's just like, oh, thank God he's dead. Like,
right.
Just like
that's how I felt when Charles Manson died. I was like, okay, finally, like because the dude was like a cockroach. Yeah. So like when he died, I was like, okay, cool, because that's closure for the families.
Right.
To know that
cool.
that person,
if they celebrate, that's their right.
To let that that evil isn't around bothering you anymore. Like that's it, done. But because I think we're off topic because this always happens. Because especially with mine. But Charles Manson he was supposed to pay so much back to the families because he had like written a book or like was selling art or something, and they didn't. I don't think they expected him to live as long as he did in prison, and I think I'm telling this correctly, but he had ended up paying back what he was supposed to pay and then started getting his own money from like selling stuff. So he had paid, as far as what the court was concerned, say it's like $500,000 or whatever.
Yeah. Because
people were buying, his book or buying his whatever, like that money went to the family. But then after that money went to the family, it came to him. So he started profiting off of like their pain.
Yeah.
But they couldn't get that money. Like there was only so much, because I don't think they thought he was going to be alive for as long as he was.
Right.
I think he was on death row. I'm pretty sure he was on death row, but he ended up dying of like cancer or something. Whatever. Anyway, so this guy was put to death. He was hanged. Burke was hanged. And the next day, his body was publicly dissected in the same anatomy theater.
That's pretty cool.
That he had helped supply with fresh corpses.
That's pretty fucking cool.
And he was dissected by Dr. Knox's rival.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Who just so happened to stay out of it.
So much better.
Like Professor Monroe, and he just so happened to stay away from this. Like he's just so happened to not be part of it. So many people tried to attend the dissection that a riot ensued. Eventually, the university arranged to admit spectators in groups of 50 at a time. So 50 people at a time could come in and watch this happen.
Yeah.
Before they had to, like, they were bringing them in like tour groups.
Yeah.
Like bringing them in,
that's really cool.
Letting them watch part of it and then letting them leave, So his death mask and his skeletal remains are on display at the college museum to this day.
Huh.
And I read
what is a death mask?
So a death mask is plaster. When you die, they cover you in they'll do live masks too sometimes, but they'll cover your face in plaster, and they'll get like an imprint of your death. And they're different societies sometimes use them as like masks to look back on, like to remember the person you lost. A
ceremonial thing?
Yeah, kind of a ceremonial thing, but they've also done it just so they could be like, look at this, this is what this terrible person looked like.
Gotcha.
So they we'll talk about that a little later actually, they do have a live mask of hair and a death mask of Burke.
Oh, cool.
So they do have one of each of those. So I thought that was pretty cool that he got dissected in the same place where he
karmic retribution at its finest.
Yeah, would bring bodies, and by the rival of the person who was paying him money to do so. Pure poetic justice. So I remember the judge had said something along the lines of like, if we're able to, your remains will be on display for people to see. Like, in other words, like, this is the ultimate punishment. Like, you will never rest.
Yeah,
like, you will never be able to rest. And perhaps more gruesomely than that, though, a book was made from his skin.
That's like a common thing. That used to happen. Yeah.
As like on the cover, and can be viewed in the police museum on the Royal Mile in Edinburgh.
Oh, cool.
In Edinburgh, and I want to see it. I want to see what it looks like. As part of the dissection, Professor Monroe, who had himself escaped in association with the killers by chance, like just so happened that he wasn't part of it.
He got lucky.
Dipped a quill pen into Burke's blood, and he wrote, "This is written in the blood of William Burke, who was hanged at Edinburgh. This blood was taken from his head." I don't know why that was important to say.
Weirdly savage.
Yeah. Following his death and dissection, people in the streets of Edinburgh sold wallets they claimed were made from his skin.
Of course.
So, like, there's
anything to make a buck.
Yeah. So there's your, Ted Bundy selling T-shirts and pins. Right. Like, they're selling wallets pretending to be this, right? And even when we talked about Joan of Arc, they had to burn her remains multiple times so people wouldn't take things from it and try to sell it. So it's just society repeating itself over and over and over again.
It's kind of strange that we are given these random glances of, like, society is its most barbaric.
Yeah.
Like, him being a terrible person gives everyone the excuse to be their most terrible self in response.
And get away with it because it wasn't as bad as what he did.
Right. Like, oh, I want to buy a wallet made of this dude's skin. Yeah. Don't worry, he was terrible.
Yeah, he was
but I want that wallet.
But I want that wallet, though. Like, I need that
very strange.
I need that keepsake. It's so, that's what's weird to me about, like, having people set up outside of, like, where Ted Bundy's going to be killed and buying shirts to remember this day. Like, I have to remember the day that this man died, which, like we were talking about, like, I get it on one hand, right? Because he was this terrible person, especially if you're attached to the families of these people in some way. And then on the other hand, it's like, where do you stand now on this, like, level of...
on the morality chart.
Yeah. Like, where are you then? Like, how do you feel about yourself knowing that you're celebrating the death of a human? I don't know. I've obviously falter back and forth on that because I do talk about serial killers a lot and kind of try to see a human side to them, like the psychological side to them. But I understand fully they're monsters and they're terrible people. Like, so it's, it's this weird, like, juxtaposition of that. But yeah, it's kind of strange to think of, like, well, I'm glad he's dead. He was horrible. Now hand me that wallet made of his skin.
Permitted barbarism.
Yeah, it's a really interesting part of our psyche that is okay.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. It's weird.
I
don't like it.
There's probably I'm sure there's tomes written about like how backward and weird that is in comparison to celebrating a person's death. But anywho, so in his confession, Burke had exonerated Knox of all knowledge of the crimes, but some years passed before Knox lived down the basically the jeering of the public and the press. So really, he kind of deserved that. Like, you have people bringing you 17 bodies, 15 to 17 bodies, and you don't question where they're coming from.
Right.
And you accept them and pay without,
turning a blind eye.
Yeah. So, like, you kind of at that point deserve to get removed from the medical community. Like, if that's how you're conducting your business, So Helen was released after the jury found that the charges against her were not proven, and she moved on. Like, so the wives moved on, Hare moved on, like, everybody just moved on.
Yeah.
Like, bye, Burke. See ya.
Yeah.
Like,
bye, Berkey. That's
so weird that they were buddies, like, literal partners in crime. And then the second it was like, okay, you guys are going to jail. It was him. It was 100% him. Yeah. Like, no honor among thieves,
Yeah.
But she had, Helen was haunted by vigilantes that were after her, like, trying to kill her. Like, it was like she had a target on her back for sure. In 2009, plaster masks of Scotland's infamous murderers were discovered, along with a hangman's noose, in the former prison storage cupboard in, like, some city that I wasn't able to say. Neither of the murderers was held at that prison, nor was anyone ever even hanged there. So they don't know where it came from.
Weird.
They have no idea where the masks came from. They don't know where it's like an actual hangman's noose, and their actual death mask. It's a live mask and a death mask, and they have no clue where they came from. And that jail is now a museum. So they were like, okay, but they were in the cupboard. Like, it makes no sense. They were thinking that it must have been like somebody must have had them, and they were being passed down and passed down and passed down, and then they just ended up there.
A weird misplacement of where they were supposed to go, maybe.
I guess. Like, that's so strange. So Gavin Dick, who is the general manager of the jail.
That's a name?
Gavin Dick. Said...
And his brother, Havin.
That's what I thought too. Said, we found the masks during a clean out of one of our storerooms, and it was quite a surprise. Initially, we thought it was just Burke, but it turns out we've got two heads, a death mask of Burke and a life mask of Hare. Unfortunately, very little is known about either head, or for that matter...
The strange sentence.
The hangman's noose, and how they came to be here. No clue. No idea. Have no clue. To make it even weirder, as if this wasn't weird enough, in late June 1836, a group of boys headed out to the northeast slopes of Edinburgh's Arthur's Seat went to hunt for rabbits. They went looking for rabbits. It's just like this. It's like
or hares.
Yeah, it's just this. It's this rocky.
It was right there. Why did you take it?
It's this rocky terrain, and they just went up there looking for bunnies.
Sure.
What they found there has remained a baffling mystery ever since. In a secluded spot on the northeast side of the hill, the boys discovered a small cave in the rock hidden behind 3 pointed slabs of slate. Concealed within were 17 miniature coffins. The tiny coffins were arranged under slates in 3 tiers, so 2 tiers of 8, and then 1 solitary coffin at the top. Each coffin only 95 millimeters in length, so around 3.7 inches, almost 4 inches, contained a little wooden figure, expertly carved and dressed in custom-made clothes that had been stitched and glued around them. So someone put care and time and effort into making each of these 17 little dolls in 17 little coffins, okay?
Yeah.
Some believe them to be products of witchcraft, because it was 1800s, right?
Yeah.
Others thought they were children's toys, and even more speculation was brought up that it may have been one of the murderers or someone involved feeling some kind of guilt for what they'd done.
Yeah.
So they were putting these down as like little effigies, like, you know, putting them to rest in this way. The dolls were in the hands of a private collector until 1901, when 8 of them were handed over to the National Museum of Scotland, where they can still be visited today. They're on display now. The funny thing is, it's not really funny, but there were 17 of them, but only 8 of them got handed over, like got passed down, because it said the boys destroyed part of them because they were boys, and they just found them and started crushing them and tearing them apart because they were boys. So they were like, you know, we would have had more of them, but a few of them were destroyed by the boys at the time. And I'm like... We
played G.I. Joes.
But yeah, they basically just like probably crushed them under some rocks until they were like, these are weird, let's take them home, you know?
Yeah.
So that's super strange to me. But although it's generally agreed that the mysterious little dolls are associated with the crimes of Burke and Hare in some way, no one's certain who among the killers created them. So they think that one of the killers might have, but they don't know for sure. DNA studies conducted in 2005 using DNA extracted from Burke's skeleton attempted to prove that they'd been created to assuage the guilty conscience of William Burke, but the test proved inconclusive, so the truth of their creation may never be known. If indeed the dolls were made during the killings, only a handful of people could have done the carving. So there's Dr. Knox, who likely knew the cadavers he was purchasing were murder victims of some sort. There were Burke and Hare, of course, Hare's mistress, Burke's wife. One of these people could have made the dolls out of the guilt that they felt, but one of the killers could have made the dolls as souvenirs and stashed them in the cave when the murders were discovered. So, like, it could have also been like a trophy. So some people are saying, well, maybe they felt bad about it. Some people are saying, well, maybe they just want to remember this. So, like, they kept this thing as a token, if you will, and that they can go back and visit, remember, like, each of these things. But if they were made after the murders were discovered, it could have been anybody.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Couldn't have just been like a fan.
They have no idea how to tell, right? Yeah. So they don't know. I wish they. I mean, I'm sure they could do something like it now, like some kind of carbon dating to see like around the time that they were made, but. Also, I guess that wouldn't really help because it would just show you the year. Yeah. So, like, it could have been, you know, somebody doing it the week after they were found. So, and we're going to talk about a little bit about Robert Knox, then we're going to wrap it up. So, Robert Knox, the doctor who was a terrible judge of character, was a Scottish anatomist, zoologist, ethologist, which is the scientific, I had to look it up because I didn't know, scientific and objective study of animal behavior, usually with a focus on behavior under natural conditions and viewing behavior as an evolutionarily adaptive trait. Okay.
So it's like a pathologist, but for...
Animals?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, is pathology diseases? Pathology is diseases.
Diseases?
Yeah, what's the... never mind, go ahead.
I know what you're talking about.
Like sociology.
Yeah,
yeah. That's not the same.
Like anthropology?
That might be what
Is that it?
Yeah.
And he was also a physician. As we know, he's a doctor.
Yeah, pathologies, diseases.
He was a lecturer on anatomy in Edinburgh, where he introduced the theory of transcendental anatomy. Look it up. I'm not going to walk you through it.
Okay.
Not you specifically, but
you looked at me with such disdain when you look it up. I'm not going to tell you about it. Dear listener. Transcendental anatomy. However, he's now mainly remembered for his involvement in the Burke and Hare murders and incautious approach to obtaining cadavers for dissection after the passage of the Anatomy Act and disagreements with professional colleagues ruined his career. So he's still... Okay, so he's kind of crappy. So he went through all this, and they were like, hey, dude, this is not cool. You can't be doing this. And he's like, oh, you're right. My bad. And then still went on to buy bodies from other people. Oh, of course he did.
So, he was like, I didn't know that they were being murdered. And then turned around and bought them from people who were very obviously murdering people. Sure. Like, who very obviously kept it up. So he got in trouble a couple times. He was going to have... He was going to start this museum, like, kind of named after himself, sort of. Like, this whole weird thing. And basically got bullied out of that. Like, got bullied out of the medical community. And they were all like, we can't be associated with you. Yeah. You're a crazy person. Leave. And his career was ruined. So, there is a silver lining. Okay. However faint around all this. The actions of Burke and Hare, along with others who imitated them, resulted in the passage of the Anatomy Act of 1832. This was an act of Parliament of the United Kingdom that gave freer license to doctors, teachers of anatomy, and bona fide medical students to dissect donated bodies. This allowed unclaimed bodies and those donated by relatives to be used for the study of anatomy and required the licensing of anatomy teachers, which essentially ended the body snatching trade. So... Now you have to have a license to be able to do this, right, instead of just anybody coming off the street wanting to cut people up. And this means that, like, more people can donate the bodies now. So, like, if you decide you want to, now you can, as opposed to you couldn't before because the law stated they had to have been criminals. Right. So now you have the option to do it. And that kind of ruined the body snatching trade because more people were like, okay, cool, yeah, I want to help further medical science. Like, yeah, that would be great. So... The use of bodies for scientific research in the UK is now governed by the Human Tissue Authority, which is a thing.
Great name for a strip club.
The Human Tissue Authority. It regulates the removal, storage, use, and disposal of human bodies, organs, and tissue for a number of scheduled purposes such as research, transplantation, and education and training. So, like, they're in control of all that stuff. Think about, like, trading skin and trading organs. Yeah. That's just gross. Popular movie versions of this type of thing, like trading organs, include Robert Wise's The Body Snatcher with Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, Freddie Francis's The Doctor and the Devils with Timothy Dalton and Jonathan Pryce, and John Landis's Burke and Hare with Simon Pegg and Andy Serkis. That's how I know about them. Because it used to, I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore, but it used to be on Netflix. And it's like this dark comedy with Simon Pegg and Andy Serkis. And it's, I mean, like, it's pretty good for what it is, right? Yeah. Like, it's goofy and silly, but it's still pretty good. Kind of violent. And I'll leave you with this. Okay.
Timothy Dalton was James Bond, by the way. He was, like, a very fleeting James Bond.
Timothy Dalton is also in Hot Fuzz. Oh. He's one of the characters in Hot Fuzz, I believe. Yeah. Huh. He's one of the... Well, I won't spoil it. He's one of the main characters in Hot Fuzz, which is it's very good. Oh, we should watch the Cornetto trilogy.
Shaun of the Dead's great, but that's the only one I've seen of the three.
Oh, I think you'd like Hot Fuzz. Okay. It's very you know how the thing that I liked about Shaun of the Dead, or one of the things, is that it's very foreshadowy and it's very cyclical. Yeah. That happens in this too. Cool. It calls back on itself a few times in ways that after you see it, you're like, oh, duh. Right, yeah.
It's the Bloody Mary thing.
Yeah. I love that. I love that when it's happening right underneath your nose and you don't notice it until the end. Yeah. Anyway, so here's it's part of a 19th century Edinburgh rhyme. Mm-hmm. Burke's the butcher, Hare's the thief, Knock's the boy that buys the beef.
Gross.
Yep. So they had like poems about them. They had songs about them. Yeah, the beef. Poems about them, songs about them. All kinds of great stuff. So that's Burke and Hare.
Huh, that's interesting.
That's a quick lesson on Burke and Hare and body snatching. The first thing I said to you when I came in was, "You ready to talk about body snatching?"
I was like, "Sure."
And you went, "Okay."
Listen, I don't know what we're getting into when you roll up. With mine, it's like it's probably gonna be like about a person or maybe a food item of some sort.
Something you love.
Yeah, and
something you care about.
Somebody's gonna die in one of your episodes, no matter what it is. Someone's dead.
Something you care about from your childhood is what we're talking about. It's like warm and fuzzy feelings. Like there's a good message at the end of the day, and mine's like, "Have you heard about this kind of death?"
Yeah. Do you know the specific ways this person died in 1841?
Have you heard of the fun ways you could die in the 1800s? Let me tell you.
No, it was cool. It's very, it sounds like it should be made into a film or something. And it has been, but I guess like...
Isn't it such a bizarre thing to think that people would do that? Like people would steal bodies? Like that you would be that bad off that you would have to steal a body to sell it for money? Like that's... I don't ever want to know what that feels like to have to think that that's what you got to do. Like that is so terrifying to me in a big way. But I mean, life was so scary then that, people are dropping dead.
People just died a lot in that time.
People just, like, it's so weird because I was reading some of the accounts of, like, people that they had killed and they were like, oh, yeah, they were drunk. There was one, I can't remember his name. They called him Daft something because he was mentally disabled and he had a limp. And they were just like, oh, yeah, it was easy to kill. Like, he was an easy person to kill.
Imagine just seeing humans, like, in that regard.
Yeah.
Like, grading them on killability.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like, there's Hare who shot his horse dead because it didn't do one thing he wanted.
Hare shot his mare.
Hare shot his mare. So,
that should have been in the rhyme, not the damn beef thing.
Hare shot his mare. So that in and of itself tells you pretty much all you need to know about him. And then you've got, them running off and leaving their wives and turning on each other at the drop of a hat, like just terrible people all around.
Yeah.
Like no real redeeming qualities at the end of the day. And then one of them gets away.
Yeah.
And at the end. So, it's untelling what happened to him. Still alive to this day, vampire.
Just a wild hair.
Oh, that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that's pretty good.
I thought it way back then. I was like, no, you're giving me too much crap.
I did. Well, it's because I could see it bubbling up, and I didn't want
it wasn't going to be as funny then, so I had to wait.
That was, okay, I'm proud of that one. That was pretty good. I'm proud of you. That was good.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Storm, where can people find you?
In this twitch.tv/stormstreams. Where can people find you?
Twitch.tv/Team Lidi.
We also have merch.
You have Patreon. Twitter.
Instagram. YouTube.
Stream gifts now.
Yeah, we both do.
Yeah, both have stream gifts now.
Yeah. Discord.
Snapchat.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's one I forgot. I think that's it.
I think you said Instagram already.
Yeah.
I like it better when we go back and forth together.
And it's not a competition.
I think of it literally every time, like when you got the bat.
Yeah,
and it's gonna hit at the top. It's always gonna be the person that starts first, or you know what I mean. Like it's always gonna be that person, scientifically. So
yeah,
I like better when it's a combination of the two of us rather than a challenge. Anyway, until next time.
Be careful where you click.